What's up guys? Today we're gonna take a look at the Projectors tab in Mari and we start right now. So let's take a look at Projectors workflows. So you can use Projectors to import cameras, and you can use Projectors to make turntables and similar. And you can also unproject stuff. So let's take a look at this. Maybe you want to apply some kind of graphics on a part of the object, but the tools in Mari is not really suitable to make precise decaling or text and stuff. So you can unproject something, a portion of your object, and import that into Photoshop, for example. That's better suited for graphics and stuff like that. And then you can make your decals and texts and whatever, and then bring it back and project it so it will match unprojected stuff. So let's start with that first. So let's say I want to add some kind of text box here with and maybe some graphics or whatever. So you zoom into a place where you want to work from, maybe rotate it a bit, or even have it in a orthographic mode like that, for example. And then you can go here, take this create projector. So this one you can rename it. Where's the double click side projector. Okay, so this essentially makes a bookmark that you can come back to that place. So if you're here and you want to come back to just that place, you can right click and say make projector current, and you're gonna jump back to wherever you bookmarked that projector. There's a few options here. This is unproject related stuff. So unproject, you can take your projector and unproject to a flat image, and you take that one into Photoshop, and then you can bring it back. You can load that image back, or any image, and it will stick to the precise location of your image plane in the projector. So let's do that. Okay, so we can say here you can browse to a location. Let's put it on the desktop, and let's name it side projector. Let's make it PNG. Save and hit unproject. So now it saves out. Okay, so let's jump into Photoshop. Okay, so we saw here now that it's transparent, and why is it transparent? And that's because I forgot to set this one. So we have current paint target. That's gonna take whatever you have selected here. So let's take current channel or current shader. So let's take current channel and look at it. So let's unproject again. Let's reopen that. So there we go. So now it's the channel. As you see, it's flat shader now, so maybe it makes more sense to have the current shader. So let's try that again, because then we should get shading. Actually, I don't have it set up to a shader. So if we have this current channel, that's fine. But we take lighting mode, we can set it to full. So this one will bake in the information here. So let's try that. Unproject again. So then we can see the different modes. So the first one was current paint target, and that's gonna be just whatever paint target you're on. Channel, and I used flat, and that gives the flat behavior. So now let's try it with full and see what happens. Let's update. So now we see here it's we see the shading similar to this, and yeah, so we have a few options for color space as well. We can try that out. Okay, same as native sRGB, so that's fine. They are identical there. So if you would set this to linear, for example, let's try what happens if you will set this export color space linear and unproject again. See what happens. So you see now I baked in a linear color profile into the image. Sometimes you might want to do that, because if I turn off color management, you see now this texture is linear. If I go by the Photoshop, they are identical. When you paint in Photoshop, it might be better to have it as sRGB if you're gonna see a little better. So let's go back and unproject to sRGB. Okay, unproject again. Okay. So now we can do our stuff here. Okay, so let's create some graphics so we can project back to that. So I have a text here. Let's open our Swedish. I want this one, the Swedish air. Maybe place it like that. So we might want to make a layer here as well with some outlining. Like that, maybe. Okay, so let's adjust this so it makes sense. Let's imagine we want to make like a yellow line here. So we have a layer here, the path selected. I have a brush. I can use this as a brush size. So the brush size is gonna be the line. So I have the same color as that one. Path is selected, hit this one. So yeah, there we have a path we can use. Okay, measurement ink. Let's take some text here and danger radioactive material inside. Yeah, let's imagine that we want to project this onto the side of that in Mari. So what we can do, we can turn off the background here. You probably want to save the document in Photoshop, but in my case, I'm just gonna merge it together. So Control E to merge them together. Then I'm gonna save this as a PNG. So we can put it in emblems. PNG side. PNG. Okay, that's fine. Let's jump back to Mari. So there we have it. So let's make a new layer here for the emblem. So what we can do now on the project here, we have the input file path. So we can browse to that file path where we saved measurement, So there we have it. We can hit import. There's already, yes, I want to clear it. There you go. It's there now. And it's not projected yet because I just hit import. If you want to project it, you can go project. If I would say project, it's gonna import and project it in one go, I guess. Let's see if that's the case. And there we go, it's projected. I usually want to import it because I have the option to fine-tune it. Let's take this away. Let's go back to that side projector so I can show you, and just import again. Back again here with a clear paint buffer. So we saw in the example we can project in one go, and we can also import. So let's import again. So there we go. So what I mean, you can if you're set up as me, I don't bake when I move. So you can then also maybe zoom in or zoom out, do stuff to this. You can even start to warp the paint or do stuff to it. I don't think you would want to do this to it, but yeah, you can do it. So yeah, that's why I don't like to bake in one go. So maybe if this would be like some kind of digidouble where you have a lot of reference images, you might want to be able to slightly nudge some features into place with a warp tool like this if it's not 100%. So if you see here, there's some kind of issues there with resolution, and that's because my patch size is quite small on this one. So yeah, we can demonstrate that by making a new channel with a larger patch size. So now we see that the text is much crisper. And if I now bake, yeah, you can see it holds up a lot better there. So that's a way to do like precision work with the text and stuff onto your object using projectors. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the settings we have here before diving into other subjects. So we can right click here, make projector current as before, and let's import that image here again. We can take a look at some stuff. So it's here now, but we have a lot of masks down here, and it's essentially all the masks that we have in the what's it called, projection tab as well. See those, the edge channel and similar. So we have a way to you see here, if I pan the paint buffer or pan the model, you see that it starts to fall off, and that's because edge mask is on. So it doesn't happen if you turn it off. It doesn't take effect immediately. You have to update only masks. You have a button there. So, and that's something, if you change the fall off, you have to hit this button to see the preview the effect. So let's take something else. Let's take fractal noise mask to see how that works. There you have it. You see it start to take away some. So I don't really use this kind of masking that often, I must say, but so I rather do masking in other means, because I don't want to take away my paint before so I rather mask it on a layer basis with masks. And yeah, but it's good to know. So size, just to visualize this better. Okay, so that's something. Okay, so we have another pair of settings here. So we have the projection front and through, and that's similar to what we have front and through. So if I would set this through, you get a little arrow down there with that says it's through and front. And so what that means, it's if it's set to front, it's just gonna project onto like the front facing, and if it's through, it's gonna project through the object. But we have this painting mode, and normally it's set to normal, and that's actually, you see up here, and the painting mode. So if I would set this to multiply, for example, let's see, there is multiply and nothing happens because I paint with white. If I set it to black, it multiplies on top of my already existing texture. The normal procedure would probably that you would project this as normal onto a new layer. But if you wanna change the blend painting mode from inside the projectors tab, you have this. So right now you see it sets to normal. If you would set it to for example multiply, you see set to multiply there, it's still normal up there, and let's take white, and that's doesn't work then. So you have to update global settings from projector, and then it's gonna switch to multiply there. So then it kind of makes sense to switch it up here than to mess with this. So I don't know why we have it in many different places. Anyway, it's essentially what it does. So you have to, for this setting to apply, you have to say update before you do it. So to visualize that with something that you would import, for example, make pressure current, set it to normal first, and say import. And there you go. So this is, if I hit flash shader, it's the same pattern. If I now clear it and go back and set this to, let's say, multiply, takes a little while, and there you go. So you see now it's much darker. This because it's multiplied against the existing colors. Let's do it again, but this time I add a layer. So this, I guess the multiplication only works if you do it on something that has a color, because it needs to be multiplied against a color. So therefore, if you want to do multiplication or any transfer modes on a layer, you have to do it in the layer instead of doing it in the paint buffer. So let's look at that. So multiply still, hit the import. So it's not gonna be multiplied because it doesn't have anything to multiply against. And the transfer mode on the layer is normal. So then this doesn't make sense. This only makes sense if you add it to something that's already have values, like a flat color or like a painting. So you don't really import it onto its own layer, you just import it on a base layer. So let's break this down. Just go to normal, multiply on the layer, and that's gonna be the same effect. So yeah, that's kind of something to have in mind. So I don't mess with the painting modes I do it on a layer, and if I want to multiply it or whatever, I do it on the layer instead. And maskings, when I do projections, I tend to really want all of the information, and I rather choose what to mask away with layer masks instead. But some cases it might make sense to mask the paint before you import it, or before you bake it down. Okay, so let's import a camera next here from Maya into Mori. This is in Lightroom. I just took a few pictures the other day. So I used a Canon 5D. So if I look at the settings up here, focal length 32mm. So that's good to know. So let's export this one out and use that in Maya. So in Mori, I just gonna project that image on top of the head. It's gonna be very unscientific. But yeah, so I have exported this geometry out from Mori using the extension pack object. You can export objects from Mori using the extension pack. So I did that, and let's jump over to Maya. So here's the model, and the camera was 32mm. Where is it? There it is. So I had a 32mm lens, and the camera aperture is 36 by 24 on my camera, so that should be correct. So let's take that one, look through the camera. Let's see, and go out a bit. Let's import an image plane. It's this image. Let's place it. Let's place the eyes there. Or take the head. It's not gonna fit, so I just want something to project for this example. So, and let's turn off X-ray, go to the shader and hit color. So I want to project with this. I'm gonna project the image. So if I right click on the 2D texture, or on the 2D texture node, right click and create as projection. So I want to use the perspective, link to camera one shape, go to image, browse for that same image, this one, and let's go out and look with shading. Let's look into the camera. So yeah, they seems to match there. It's the same as the background. It goes over, so it just projects straight through like a projector. So let's take this camera now and export it as an alembic. So take that camera. You have to enable alembic outputs. So under plugin manager, ABC export has to be ticked, and go to cache, alembic, export selection to alembic. I think I just hit default most of it. Export selection, desktop. So let's jump into Mori. There we go. So under the projectors tab, let's import that camera now. So we can go for this button, load projector. We can just right click and say load projector. Go to my desktop. Okay. So there we go. And now I have a layer here on top of this one. Go to the input file path, browse for that same image, this one, the one I exported from Lightroom, and say import. Give it a moment, and there you go. It's the same image, so we can bake it down now. So now it's, yeah, that's it. So that's the basic rundown of how to import camera from Maya into Mari. Okay, cool. So what's next? We can there's another few things you can do with projectors. For example, you can render turntables as well. It's something I tend to do sometimes, but there's a few caveats with the turntables. Sometimes if you have a really expensive shader or something, you might get low resolution textures when you render the, because I think it has to feed it into everything in the GPU memory. And sometimes if your GPU memory is getting low, it might start to map your textures and take lower resolutions than the actual high-res texture that you painted. So that's something you have to have in mind. Sometimes it can look degraded, but it's not the actual texture. It might be just the preview of the texture. So let's just take this one. And by the way, the foundry is in those windows there. So this is an HDR. You can download it on my blog, the Mari channel. It's a free HDR I have there. So if you want to use this HDR and a lot of others, just go to themarichannel.com. Okay, so let's render a turntable. So we can make a new camera if you want to. So let's make a turntable camera, create camera, TT camera. If you right click and say render turntable, you get a dialog. Let's make this 1024 by 1024 now. Set the anti-alias to high. So we have a few options for background. So gray is gonna make a gray background. Transparent, it's gonna be transparent. Let's choose from canvas now and see what happens. Let's make this 12 frames now, just for speed. So filters, let's turn that on. I usually turn it on. Just go as I usually do. Let's say flat at the moment. So this has to do if you're gonna have shadowing or not, like that or like that. Okay, let's go back. Render turntable. We can do this twice. One with flat and one with lighting to see the difference. So gray, canvas, sure, filters on, lighting flat. And this is the path where you want to save it to. So I've already rendered one, so let's make a new folder, turntable 2. Choose that one and hit OK. And I will get back. Desktop, turntable 2. There we go. So first off, we see there's some discrepancies in color here compared to what we see in the viewport. So let's take a look at what that can be. Let's try and solve that issue with the discrepancy between what we see here and what came out. So what you can do is go to render turntable again, So in my case, if you turn off filters, so I guess what is happening, it's a little counterintuitive in my case, this turntable, to get it to be in the right color space. So I would think that it would always render linearly, because everything else in Mari 3 is linear, and filters would be whatever you have set here. But if you turn it off, then it's gonna look like it does here. So let's test that. That's kind of the same as there, so that's good. So what I did, I turned the filters off, and then it renders as it did in the Mari viewport. So let's take this another step further and see what happens if I turn this color management off here. So this is the linear image, and let's re-render this again, and just to see if that makes any difference, just as a test. Let's do this. So filters off, turntable, frame, blah blah, just rewrite the same images and see what happens. Okay, so now it's ready, and let's look inside that folder again. It looks the same. Strange. That was not what I thought. So yeah, the filter thing is, to me, it's a little cumbersome. So let's redo this again just to be sure and make it to a whole new folder. Okay, so there we go. Now it's written. So let's go back and say TT4, and what do you know? It's still the same thing. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, this whole color management in the render turntable. So yeah, that's something that I guess the Foundry has to look into. This has been a plague since a long time. So it doesn't really matter what I set. It just bypass what you think would be normal. So I kind of just make a test, and when it looks like it does here, and what you have to set it to, that's something. I would like to have an option, go to render turntable and tell what kind of LUT I want to display it with instead of this. So that will be cool, but right now you can't, so you have to just eyeball it and see. So let's render with shading now before we wrap this up. So I just set this to lighting full, and filters is off. So you can just hit this preview button down here to see how it's gonna end up. And it's gonna end up like that. So let's just render a turntable. Okay, so there we go. There it is, the turntable. It's the first frame of it, at least. So yeah, let's wrap this up. Thanks for watching this episode from the Mari channel about the Projectors tab and camera projections and the turntable tool. So yeah, you know what to do. Hit the like button and leave any comments in the field below on my YouTube channel. Or you can just hit the bell notification and the subscribe button, and you will be notified whenever I put stuff up on the YouTube channel or my blog. See you in the next one. Bye bye.